Hello everyone. Firstly, it's a huge privilege to be here. So I'm just going to share some of my personal thoughts. Despite my youthful looks, I've nearly had 30 years in the construction industry. And it's nice to be back up north where pretty much it started when I was in Stoke on the A50 all them years ago. So I've been asked to share a few thoughts on winning at innovation. So I will do a sales pitch because I run my own business now, Austin Wright. So one part of it you've probably got, the Austin, where does the right come from? And it's my foreman and best friend for 30 years, and together we manage change effectively, and that's what I want to talk about, because we still need that relationship between the people on site and people in the office who actually get stuff done. So that's why I asked him would he mind me using his name, and he said no, so I'll explain a bit more. But before we go, it's been a really fast-paced evening, lots of stuff going on, and this construction industry has safety moments and all that stuff. I'd just like to do a well-being moment. So in this fast-paced world we live in, and I'm going to explain a bit more about why it's important, I'd just like us all to take 15 seconds of just silence before we carry on. And it feels like a really long time, 15 seconds. But to me, the one thing that we have to do to get innovation to work is stop. This industry runs on 100 miles an hour. We're not brilliant at stopping. And neither am I. So this picture of me up here is a week before I realised I had a problem with anxiety and depression. So that's why I put it up there, because I looked really great in it, I looked really good. Actually I wasn't, I was in a really dark place. And through the mental health team locally, I did a 10-week mindfulness course. And every Tuesday afternoon, I went for 2 hours. So now every Tuesday afternoon I book out the afternoon. I thought, well, I did it for 12 weeks roughly, so I might as well carry on. So that's it. During this period though, the next picture is a prayer wheel. So, and it's really about getting generations involved and people involved. It's not about youngsters or old people or whatever, it's just getting a generation of you in. So Julia approached me and said, Mark, I've got this mad idea. There's an art exhibition coming up. Can you make me a Tibetan prayer wheel? Because I'm really fed up with sculptures at art exhibitions and nobody's interacting with them. So we came up with this, I'm a woodworker, and we came up with this idea of Tibetan prayer wheels. So it was in a really bad time for me. We're now taking it out to schools, so we're having our first meeting next week, and we've got 10 schools signed up, and we're going to bring them into schools to get people interacting with objects, appreciating art, and for well-being. So it just goes to show you, even when you're in your dark days, innovation can come from all sorts of funny places. And the third bit is, when I was in corporate life, I used to use woodwork in particular. It's my downtime. So now I split my time 50-50 between the corporate world and helping, supporting, and running my own woodwork business. So it's a really important point that actually well-being, and particularly if you're going to win at innovation, if you can't look after yourself, you can't do this stuff, because it's really, really hard. So what gives me the right to be here? So this is my career on a slide. You know, I'm an engineer by background, so it is money and time. But you can see there's a bit of a whoopsie at the end. So I'll just give you a quick whistle-stop tour. So this was my middle career, management. So I started as a chain boy, very inappropriate term today. But engineer's assistant, went to college in Stockport, just down the road, around here. Did some stuff, got promoted, took my first sabbatical. Then I had children, did some stuff, got an MVQ, level 4 and 5. And then my career started to sort of jump up a bit. Got my first leadership role, real leadership role, about 2010. Was made a director in about 2013. So of a large construction company, being a director in your 30s is, you know, no mean feat. Predominantly in civil engineering. At that point I diversified. I went into business development. I managed change and also looked after the waste sector, which is a very challenging sector. Through that I then got a love for innovation, and I've always done it all through my career, winning awards and all that stuff. And this opportunity came up. So I took another sabbatical before I did that. So I took 2 months out in 2016, full director of a corporate company. Actually I needed a break, so I took one. And then you can see my career spiked, because I then got a really big job. But actually, at the end of it, perhaps was I happy? Was it really what I wanted to do? Probably not. When I was 40, I took out this thing that I was going to actually spend some time and try and go 50-50 by the time I was 45, and I was 45 last week, so it's kind of there, and get out of corporate life by the time I was 50 and become an artist. So actually I'm living my dream, but it does mean a bit of an adjustment. And the other thing it really shows is that actually it's not sustainable. So, you know, these things are great, but actually you've got to keep sustainable for you as an individual. So if you're going to manage innovation and be the leadership roles, just something to bear in mind, you know, you've really got to look after you. And really, this is my kids. We go walking in the woods, we do jumping. This is my constant inspiration. And leadership isn't about you. So if you're going to win at innovation, it's about other people. So I gave Rob a chance 3 years ago because I said I wanted someone alongside me with a different view, 40 years plus, been in the industry a long time. So he gave me a different view. But when we sat down and wrote the corporate strategy for a large company, I said, well, what are you going to do? And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and then we'll compare notes. And I basically gave him 3 months for 2 months, free rein for 3 months to come up with ideas. And eventually that became our corporate strat line. But we also get all the generations involved. Z, Alpha, X, Y, whatever. Actually, we've all got a really interesting voice. And for me, winning at innovation is just about having different people in a different room with a different perspective. But you've really got to listen to your quiet voices, and I support Sideways 6's view. You know, we use tools like that. And really the quiet voices are the ones that we've now got through the technology we have available to really surface them and actually be able to save and make huge savings and our organisations better. Really do empower your teams and believe. That's the hardest one. It's really, really hard, this stuff. But ultimately we spend a lot of time at work, so it is part of our life, but life is work as well. You know, you've got to get that balance right between what you love doing, so we can go out and have some fun like this. So my pitch is my personal view, and his personal view, having spent 30 years, I'm glad Mike's here, I spent a bit of time on the i3P board when it was going through the transforming construction thing, so that was the sort of level I was working at. And I really came back to last year, the biggest thing is change. Everyone talks about it. So my whole business now is running about managing change effectively. And really there's 4 key things. The first is why? Because every change matters. In the old days, it was really easy. You got a letter with a few drawings attached to it. Someone had thought about it. Now it's an email, Twitter, fax, BIM model, you name it. Thousands and thousands of bits of information. But which one matters? They all do. Do you know how many changes you've got? Could you imagine Tesco's not knowing how many tins of beans they got? You know, our primary revenue generator is a drawing or a specification. Can anybody in this room tell me how many drawings and specifications they've got on their site? The third one is, how can you write a story? And when we're trying to explain really complex changes, so I've worked on the likes of Crossrail, Hinckley, very, very complex schemes, how do you get that simplicity of story? And really, if you thought about it, could you sell it in 4 chapters? And the last bit is, this is a $50 billion year dispute resolution market worldwide. And the cash is king. This is just lost profit. So, you know, people out there are making profit out of managing the fact we can't manage change. And actually, this is, for me, is the real heart of cash flow. So people talk about payment and all that, but actually, are we getting the valuations right? Do we actually understand what we've actually built or got to build? And actually, perhaps it's our answer to productivity. So how do you win at innovation, and how do you know the changes? Well, I'm going to use my model, but it's really simple. The first one is the ideas. So what is the problem or outcome we're trying to achieve? It's all very great. I want a drone, I want an iPad. Brilliant. Why? What are we going to do with it? Now this was, I spent 3 years, and there's some people in the room, lots of tech companies to come and talk to me. And they spent an hour and a half trying to really get into me what my problem was. So once we got through that bit, the next part was, what's the process? This was where it all got a bit tricky, because most of the time we don't understand our process or our workflow. And then there's the question of, well, now and in the future. So we spend a lot of time, and really, the other thing that really fascinated me was that everyone called them tools. And I was thinking, that's a digger, that's a shovel. Oh, they're just tools. The thing is, we haven't worked out yet how to use them in the right order and what to do. So it's just tools. So once we go through that process, it can help us. And then the third one, which used to stump us even more, was, can I have your data? And at which point we all go, because it's in a different format, it's in a different thing, blah, blah, blah. And really, the way to think about it from construction is these are just materials. They're the new materials. They're the same as concrete, the same as steel. They're just materials to enable us to go about our work. So if we can come up and, you know, get the ideas, get the process, get the materials and the data, The last bit is the time and love that goes into it. We spend a huge amount of money on construction sites, on human capital, on capability. So actually, how can we make that faster, better, to actually manage documents and change? And then the last bit is, all of that is my formula for success, because ultimately it's about happy customers. And if we can notify change in time, we can release cash for everybody, but actually the client's happier, we're happier, the whole supply chain's happier. So that's my model. And really you want to think about, when you're going there, in this world, Jackie talked about digital strategy. I spent a long time on that in my last role. Still no idea what it means. Still no idea how to do it. But actually just why? Do we want everyone to be voice activated? Okay, great, let's round around that. Do we don't want to be? Great, how are we going to deliver it? So they're really important things to think about. But the reason why I think change, particularly on an innovation journey, is so important and how you succeed is the profitability of dispute resolution companies I've found is 24 to 35%. We're all struggling between 0.5% and 1%. You know, we'd really love to make 2%. I'm sure we'd all get a real pat on the back for making that sort of profit. RICS alone, £2 billion a year in disputes. And the real issue is it's taking 20 million quid in 12 months to resolve some of these really big issues. You know, that's a really huge issue. And if we can release this, then we can invest and do what we need to do properly, which is change the industry. But the three biggest things, and the reason why it ends up: failure to administer the contract, understand the contract obligations, and failure to the correct notice. So if we manage change effectively, basically we'll get rid of all three of those, because actually it's just about early notification, doing something about it, taking the action point from earlier and getting on and managing the change. Doesn't matter where the risk sits, we've still got to manage it. So that's really what I'm trying to do moving forward. But also I really believe it's how we win at innovation. In my last role I helped implement a back office transformation of a ERP system. And if you really want to understand your business, yeah, that's interesting. And really the devil's in the detail. You've got to get really down and dirty, really map every number, every spreadsheet. But really it's about taking people on that journey. The people are the people who make this happen, and really talk about earlier, explaining it. But what I've found is just managing that change, and everything changes all of the time. And I'll leave you with one last thought. When I was a change manager on a £400 million project, CTRL 103, if you all come on the Eurostar and you go over those lovely blue and grey bridges, they're mine, we had 160 things a week that were changing, and we had 47 key dates and 7 sectional completion dates, and we could tell what was driving what right the way through the programme. That was in 2003 to 2006. The last time I did this in my last role, we had 3,500 documents a week, and we're still managing it in an 18th century way. So just a mindful, as we move with more and more data, if we don't manage this change, whether it comes from Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, formal document management systems, BIM, whatever it comes from, it's still a change and still got to be dealt with. So for me, how do we win at information? It's just understanding the details of that change. And if we can do that, then I think we can make this industry much, much better. And that's me.